bringing you bold discussions, the hottest topics, and some tracks to keep you moving. The Drive Time Exchange on Nett Radio, taking you above and beyond.
How life was going sweet. You went to school and you learned a lot since you was a tiny tot. So please do not forget, I say how all these things you come to get. Since you was in your cradle, your mother and your father was responsible. Remember when you couldn't even walk. Remember when you couldn't even talk. I say remember who used to wash your clothes for you? Who used to wipe your nose for you? Who used to hug and kiss you? I say remember who used to change your diaper? Who used to find your supper? Don't forget was your mother and father. Alright, yes sir. When things was going fine, with not a worry on your mind, and when things wasn't so good with you, who was the first ones you would run to? So how could you forget? And up to now you can't pay back yet. Try from now till forever, you could never pay back your mother and father. Remember when you couldn't even walk. Remember when you couldn't even talk. I say remember who used to wash your clothes for you? Who used to wipe your nose for you? Who used to hug and kiss you? I say remember who used to change your diaper? Who used to find your supper? Don't forget was your mother and father. It have some fathers ain't good at all. They never mind you when you was small. But never mind how your father bad. You shouldn't take it on too hard. Try to understand what would be your position. If it wasn't for your daddy, you would never have a dear mommy. Remember when you couldn't even walk. Remember when you couldn't even talk. I say remember who used to wash your clothes for you? Who used to wipe your nose for you? Who used to hug and kiss you? I say remember who used to change your diaper? Who used to find your supper? Don't forget was your mother and father.
Well, everybody, welcome to the Drive Time Exchange right here on New Era TT Radio. Yeah, remember who? And of course, remember you are all listening to New Era TT Radio, the heartbeat of the Caribbean, as we take you above and beyond. Right?
Food you eat, man, how life.
Of course, this is our Drive Time Exchange, and our host is none other than journalist extraordinaire, Mr. Tony Fraser. Tony, great afternoon to you, my friend.
And good afternoon to you, Charlo. You pull one from far, boy.
Yeah. I went down in the box.
yeah. That must go back to the 60s.
I'm not too sure. But I know I went down in the box.
I think it was a fellow called Nelson Keaton who may have composed it. The singer was, who was the singer? I'm trying to remember.
Creator.
Sorry?
Creator,
yes, Creator, the singer. I think Nelson Keaton was the composer. He was a man who was composing. I never saw him. I never saw a picture of him. But I think he was a composer in that period of time. So he and people like Rocky McCollin and so on, I'm sure you know the name Rocky McCollum.
Oh, I know the name well. I never met him, but I know the name.
Radio Trinidad. He was the man with all of the music for years and years, all of the calypso music. He also was a composer. He never sang any of his calypsos, but Nap Hebron used to sing his calypsos. Big stories.
Nice. Good history there, man.
Yes. You haven't seen our guest just yet?
Well, I see somebody's coming in. I don't know if that is Asten. I don't know if Mr. Tousaint is on an iPhone. Whoever is there in between with us, can you reveal yourself? Because you didn't come in with a name.
Yeah. There is Reverend Lennox Tousaint, somebody you should know well. There he is.
Nice.
Charlo, you know that fellow?
Of course, I know him well.
Lennox Tousaint and Angela Tousaint, the better part of the combination. Good afternoon to you. And what about Asten Isaac?
I haven't seen him as yet. I'll make contact with him though.
All right. So we will start off here. I am not seeing Angela. I am seeing something blocking in front of you. All right, there she is. And you have a book. What about the picture of the book? You need to display that. You can do that as we go along. But this afternoon, Chalo, as we have done on a couple previous occasions, we've had people who have come in to talk about the difficulties they faced when they were young people, the difficult circumstances that many of them were born and grew up in. And, what we want to do often in the world of today, we have a lot of young people who have gone off the rails in all kinds of, circumstances. And sometimes they feel that it's impossible, that they weren't born in that proverbial gold spoon in their mouth. And therefore, they have succumbed to the fate of non-performance, non-achievement, etc., etc. And we've done 2 or 3 other programs, and we continue to do them because we want to reach out to young people to say that it does not have to be so. And here are a couple of people who knows that very well, given their own life stories. And they're Reverend Tousaint, Lennox Tousaint, and Angela Tousaint, Mrs. Angela Tousaint. And they have done a book, which I see in Mrs. Toussaint's hand, yes, and talking about his life and talking about all of the circumstances of his life. So we have brought them here today to tell us about it. Let's start with you, Reverend Tousaint. How difficult was it for you in your youth? Were you born with that proverbial gold spoon in your mouth, and you came from the upper echelons of the society? Tell us what the story is with regard to coming out of that situation. We're going to elaborate on it, or we're going to allow you to elaborate, you and Angela to elaborate on it as we go along. But give us a sense of where you came from. Well, I think you have to unmute. You have to unmute.
Yeah, you're still muted there. Unmute your microphone.
Are we better off now?
Yes, we are.
Fantastic. Now I was saying, Tony, that proverbial gold spoon from where I came from was really a brass spoon, But as life went on, all efforts were made to move it up a bit from brass to gold.
So give our young people something of the details of your youth, where you were born, what were the circumstances, etc., and the parental guidance that came with the difficulties.
I was actually born in St. James, and I grew up in St. James from about 1 till I think 3 or 4 years old. It was one of those situations where it was my grandfather's house, he and my grandmother lived there, and my mother also lived there with her brother. So you understand the size of that fitting. It really wasn't a bungalow. It was the opposite to a bungalow.
Long time I haven't heard that description, a bungalow. Yes.
Yeah.
Those were the big houses where the expats lived in the oil industry and so on. Yes.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. So go ahead.
This was one of the houses where if you had to change your mind, you had to go outside, change your mind, and come back inside.
Mhm. Yes.
And but the family was tight and nice, thank God. And my uncle had a very early responsibility of getting involved. One early Saturday morning, I was told. He was the man that they were sent on the mission to the midwife. And he had the responsibility of getting the midwife there before I was born in a very timely manner. And it started from there and it kept moving, very active. I understand I was my grandfather's favorite because of my mischievousness. But that's the life. I moved on from St. James, Brunton Road and St. James, into the heart of Port of Spain, with my grandmother. And there was a lot to learn around there. You need to be very sharp, eyes and ears. I was also exposed to Richmond Street Boys School, which I continue to say is the best primary school in the world. You know, and you had really interesting folks in the area, and it gave you a chance to look at these people, listen to them, and make some decisions about yourself. You know,
what were the aspirations coming out of the situation? So you were born in St. James. Father wasn't around, as you have indicated. You had a mother, a grandmother, and a grandfather, and so on. Can we presume that there were some circumstances where money flowed, and therefore you can get the kinds of things the family could have provided, the kinds of things for a young boy growing up?
I wish it worked that way, but it didn't. My mother would drop by every now and then and bring some money for my grandmother to assist with the upbringing, because she was working in a restaurant down St. Vincent Street called St. Pauli, which was one of the top restaurants at the point in time.
Yes, go ahead. Seem to have been frozen there for a moment, Charlo.
Yeah, apparently so. I don't know why.
Yeah. All right, we're back on stream now. Yes, go ahead,
Probably
Lennox.
the internet.
Yeah, so it was important to see her on a Saturday evening shutting up the street, bag in hand with some foodstuffs and some change in her pocket to give to my grandmother, you know, and that made me very happy. My grandmother was a very strict lady, I must say. That didn't make things too easy for me, but the life went on. I learned a lot, you know. And the community that I came from was a very interesting community. And every now and then I wonder, I say, well, it's very, very important to note how God moves there, because on the left of me on Donald Street, the idea was Sel Duncan's mother. You know Sel Duncan? You know that name, Sel Duncan?
Yes, one of the top music bands of the era.
That's right. That was on the left side of me. On the right side of me, there was Peter Minshall and Marcus Minshall. And I don't have to say much about them. On the opposite side of the road was Olive Walk. Olive Walk, the leader of the La Petite Musical Choir. Next to her was the Cummins family. Everett Cummins and Philbert Cummins and Ellis Cummins,
Right.
better known as Gally Cummins. Next to them was Bertram Innes
Hmm.
and his daughter Anne-Marie Innes,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So that basically some of the people I remember
Yeah.
in that, growing up in that area.
So
You
if
know.
if I understand you, what you're saying that also you were physically not well off, you were culturally in a land of plenty.
Yes, definitely.
Culturally.
Definitely. A big fat blessing from the Almighty.
Right. So you had some physical attractions around you. Angela
Mhm.
Tousaint, tell us about your own upbringing. I know there's a story with you on Lennox, so we'll get to that in a moment. But for the time being, your own circumstances that and the place that you grew up, and the state of the family life, and on those kinds of things.
I was born on Clifton Hill, 16 Clifton Hill. That is where, I mean, many folks now dare not to thread. For example, I mean, I would love to go there, but
There's your way.
circumstances won't allow.
Yeah.
Yes, I was born at Port Spring General, but I lived there with my mom and stepfather, and who grew me up from baby. Um, Actually, I thought I was my father until I was about 11, 12 years old when this gentleman came and they presented him to me, you know. And I was saying, no, that wasn't my father's inside. But we lived there for a while and then we moved down because that was a one-room place, which was barred off with a blind. Some people will know that, you know, for the adults. And we would have a mattress where we will put on the night and roll up next day in the small space. So we went down eventually to Clifton.
So Angela, sorry, before you go on to modern families, middle class, well-to-do families, they would see that as being impossible. How many people were in the house at that time?
It was 4 children, and it was 6 of us, and mother and father.
All right, in a one room.
One room.
One room.
Yes.
Wow.
Which was separated by a folding blind.
Okay. Yeah. I
There was
remember
a little bed.
the
Yes.
folding blind had some curtains in front of.
Curtains. Yes.
Yeah.
And so, like on a weekend, we would have a little bench and a chair, those with the little holes. I remember putting that outside against the wall and to get a little breeze from in the house because we grew up within the house, not mixing or so. And we were renting that one room in the front from Miss Tootsie, who was an Orisha lady. So to go to use the outhouse, you had to walk through shallow, whatever they call it, the altar and so in the backyard. Yes, to go to use the outhouse. So we were happy on a weekend to go outside and sit down and watch folks pass up and down the hill.
Right.
So
there was no running water inside the home, no toilet.
No. We had a standpipe outside on the hill, but there was a hill. So we lived at the bottom of the hill. That is the place here. So then we moved to a one-bedroom, which was a little bigger. And it had a little gallery in it. So at least you still have to share the bedroom because that was theirs. So you still had to put down the mattress in the night and roll it up next morning, and tie it up.
You must have had bedding too. I think bedding
you had to put on the bedding. But I must say those were happy days, sleeping on Flora on a nice thick mattress where my stepfather, he would buy the fiber and so and beat it, wash it and beat it. And he made it. Get the face made and we helped stuff in it and sew it and it was thick and nice. I didn't miss a bed.
Let me ask both you and Lennox, did you feel that you were poor in those circumstances that you grew up in?
Well, for me, I knew I was poor. When I was with my grandmother, I didn't feel that way because she had a massive bed that both she and I shared, and we could have put 2 more people inside of it. You know, four-poster bed that every weekend I had to clean the brass on it and put it back up. When I went to St. James, it was something different because St. James we had like 4 boys, my 2 brothers, my cousin, and I, and we had to roll out the mattress every night. Well, unfortunately, one of us had the habit of being bed. So we had to put out the mattress every morning
Okay,
to make sure that it dry for the night.
What about that feeling of poverty? You know, now you hear people say, "Well, I'm from the ghetto and things bad, and you know, I had to try something else because this ghetto living ain't working." Did you all feel poor, that you had nothing?
I didn't know of whether I had nothing to compare because it was really church on a weekend and school. So from school you walk back home really. So there was nobody. We weren't allowed to associate with people. We grew up real strict. It was inside this house and whatnot. So you weren't fully aware of what was around, who had more or whatever, nothing to compare with. So you was just contented. I remember one year that I got a new dress to go to church, and well, his stepfather was also a shoemaker, and he made this shoe which I was so happy with. And that is that one dress. And I remember eventually after a couple of weeks wearing it, I decided to take it down. And my mother bought a piece of material, and from that, I learned, how to cut. I measure it and try to make back up a dress just like it, same, I mean, with different material, but I was able to start sewing from that, and I was probably about 12, 13 years old, where I decided, well, at least this one dress thing, let me try to sew, and I sewed that dress in my hand.
Okay.
And yes,
So you were one dress youngster at that point in time.
Yeah, there was a one dress. Yes, that was a good dress for some holidays, but you still had the little ones with the little that was sewn, and you try to mend and sew to go other Sundays that weren't a holiday.
Yes. What about Lennox's? What about your wear? I understand that you had an interesting name for the clothes that you wore. Sorry.
Yeah. Yes, because that is where the challenges came. My grandmother had a rule that you will not get a new shoe until the next term. So be careful how you treat with your shoe. Your gym boots in particular. And I distinctly remember that one of the things I got really good at was carving the inner sole for the gym boots. Because when the gym boots got a hole and it wasn't time for the term to finish as yet, you had to wear that same gym boots to school until the end of the term. You know?
Yeah.
But
you don't get no early replacements at all.
No. Also the pants. If it is that your pants get worn or torn, your grandmother will have to put needle and thread to it, and that will have to also last in the term. So much so that when my grandmother finished with my pants, my friend used to call me Apache. And that had nothing to do with the East Indian or the Indian part of it. It simply had to do with the art that was displayed on the back of my pants.
Yes. Plenty patches.
Huh?
Plenty patches.
Yes. So the name Apache was the fitting name.
And little fellas, of course, had a special capacity for creating names for colleagues.
Mischievousness.
Okay, so we are talking about all right, those are difficult situations and so on. Did you, as you both of you started growing older, did you become aware that this was not physically the best place to grow up? That there was material outside there to be had, new clothes, no, whatever on limitations on what you could eat and what you could wear and so on. And when you saw friends with those kinds of things, did you aspire to becoming like that?
I started that period at, when we moved down the hill. And I remember, well, you had to ask to go imagine in the gallery to sit down, and I remember started dreaming, in other words, thinking about my future, and I will live in this house, nice house with a pool and, nice life. So I remember clear, distinctively that sitting in the gallery more than once, I would be picturing myself, doing well as I grew older, but as I mentioned previously, never went to a school fair. All we went to school and church. Don't know about a party, a cinema. Never went to a cinema until I met this young man next to me. I didn't know about cinema. I didn't know about school fair. I didn't know about anything. That is the way we grew up until I was really a teenager.
Right. So when you started thinking about moving physically and otherwise from where you are in life to, I suppose by that time you would come out and you would see that there was another world outside there. Did you perceive, or how did you perceive of getting to that world into which you did not live at that point in time?
Don't think I even gotten to that where, but all I knew is because, living in such a situation, a cramped situation, and with such a strict stepfather that you don't know anything about going to a sea bath, that there was a beach that folks were allowed to go. You wasn't aware of it because, as I say, from time school over, it was you walking straight home, and so there was nothing much to compare to. I didn't really look and had no friends to say that I knew this one was experiencing anything. No, it was just there, knowing that at some point when I get older, I would want a better life. But there wasn't much to compare to say I saw anybody or experience with friends or so. There were no friends until this one girl who I walked home with from Progressive once or twice, that she came a Christmas, a Boxing Day to act and visited, which in surprise my mother allowed her, and she asked for me to go at her home after, and in shock and dismay, my mother said yes. And as we stepped out, she hold my hand and she said, Angela, we going over. And tug at me because I said, well, no, I can't go. Frightened. I say, because you're now coming out because it's outside feeling stranger because you're not, first time you're really allowed to come out, to walk, to go by the neighbors. And she said, Angela, don't play up in your ASS. You're going. And we went. And as God, that was God's plan. And that's where I met this gentleman for the second time.
The first time was a kind of tragedy.
On Charlotte Street, I was doing a Christmas job really at Little Goose on, covering buckles and buttons. And, on the lunchtime, you're getting to walk the little street, something that you're not accustomed on Charlotte Street. And this young man behind me, I can't remember whatever he said. He made some remarks walking. But what I can remember is when he passed by, I was really sorry I didn't respond. Really. And then now to see, because that was during the holidays, and probably by the next week was Christmas and Boxing Day, that who I could see when my friend, when she took me over, was this gentleman. So I think that was God's doing.
So the man turned up at another place.
Yes.
All right. Reverend Tousaint, how did you, well, first of all, the aspirations to live in another world, what were they? How did you plan to accomplish this living in another world?
For me, it was all about getting myself a job. And from that job, taking some courses, because I always believed that I had the ability to go on to some other courses, especially after work, and so doing improve myself.
Right.
And
you talk about work. Sorry, you talk about work, but we didn't know that you have a job. How did you get this job, and what was the job all about?
Well, the job was a job that came out again. They say out of evil cometh good. Today I was playing football in the Dry River. For those who know where the Dry River is. And a gentleman I had asked
a place they used to call, they still call it behind the bridge.
Behind the bridge.
And when you're from behind the bridge, you're in a bad way.
Oh yeah, you have a stamp on your forehead. Yeah, okay, nobody don't want to meddle with you. You know? And I was in City Syncopated steel van. And there was a gentleman there who was working at Nestle. And I asked him to give me consideration if any little opening should come up, because I need a job. He looked at me, he shook his head, and he said, all right. He went about his business, and I went about back down in the river to play my football. A couple of weeks passed, and it was a Friday afternoon when I heard the voice from the top of the river wall, Lennox, come up by me Monday morning at 7 o'clock, eh? I said, okay, thank you. Well, I don't think I remember playing the balance of that game. I was so confused because it looked like I'm going to get a walk, you know? So I couldn't wait. For Monday morning to come. I was up bright and early. I was the first person outside Nestle's gate, waiting. And then when he came and he opened up, he said, come with me. Your job here now is to pack boxes. The trucks will come from the wharf with these boxes and them full cases of different things. And your job is to make sure that they're well packed inside of here. And I say, okay, that's fine enough for me. He said, all right, you'll get $19.60 every week. Now, if you miss a day, that will be taken out. That will be deducted. Well, he was talking in the wind because I know I would have been there Sunday and all. You know? So I started a job there at Nestle. It wasn't the best thing, especially for the guys that I line with, because the guys I was lining with at the point in time was real sharp men. You know? Eddie King and Andy and them fellas was real sharp. And you had to be careful how you're wearing something twice, because you tell you can't gamble. But Tony didn't have on that last week. So you know you had to cheat with your stuff, right? I didn't miss the event, or you're going to get your mama guy, you know? So and things started to look up at Nestle for me, because there were people who were looking at me and without my knowing. So as a little opening came, they moved me from inside the warehouse to going out on the truck to deliver to various groceries and things. That was a promotion. That was an improvement, you know. And my eyes was always further down the road. Always further down the road. And then I got into, I don't know who sent me, but a young lady approached me and said, you know, I'm expecting a baby. I said, what? She say yes. And it's your baby. I say, Lord God.
That didn't fall from the sky, right?
Well, baby coming, baby had a mind, you know. Fortunately for me, I was working with a milk company.
All right.
That gave me a little advantage, you know. So the baby had to be taken care of. And from there, we started to move no longer as one, but as 2.5. Baby coming, you know. And there's a lot to look back at and thank God for, because I think it was a situation that was richly blessed by the Almighty.
Right. So that you were born in those circumstances, you grew up in difficult circumstances. Did you feel that there would come a point in time when you would escape the circumstances? And what did you have to do, both of you? What did you have to do to make a change to your lifestyle?
Well, let me say about the baby thing. I know I was living in this situation where I can't go anywhere. And this was planned by me. I wanted to see. I remember telling God that I want to see what two of us would produce. So I really planned for this born. I wanted to get away from home, and because I say, well, when I'm pregnant, they can't stop me now and that kind of thing. So that was a plan to really escape strictness and that kind of thing.
Yeah, today they call it planned parenthood.
That was was really planned. But when I was at I went to Little Goose. I was going to St. Rose's, and I went during the holiday. I'd asked my mother to do this little job that I saw advertised, covering buckles and buttons. And I went there the morning and was interviewed, and they asked me if I could cover buckles and buttons, and I said yes, which I really didn't know anything about. I was really just doing my little sewing on my little arm on pieces of material, trying to make up dresses. But when there was a girl, gosh, what was her name, boy? When I went and I told her, I said, listen, I don't know how to do this thing. She said, all right, let me show you quickly. And she showed me how to cover a buckle and a button quickly. And I mean, I was able to do it. Fair enough, it wasn't the best, but it was good enough for Mr. Richardson to say, okay, I'm hiring you. And eventually, I began doing so well that he put me in charge of that section. And then I met a cousin of hers who was about to sit nursing exam. Now, mind you, I was on vacation from school, and that job changed everything. I started to do well, and he put me in charge to head that department to oversee other folks doing this buckle and buttons covering. And then I took the exam. This girl encouraged me to apply. There's another niece, and I applied. And it was so sad that I passed the exam and she didn't. So I went on to do nursing, forgot about school. And that was the start of my work career, where I went on to San Fernando and was trained for St. Anne's psychiatry. And I did that, and after a few years, I wanted to go and because I used to go down with patients. They would send me when the mentally ill patients go down to general. They would send me. I like to go. I would be the first to put up my hand and say, let me go. And I liked it down there. So I wanted to go. And I remember Kamaluddin Mohammed was in my area in Barataria. And I remember us telling him I wanted to go because they were only choosing the senior people. And I told him I wanted to go. And I remember one call that they should place me on the list to go down. And so I went down and did my general with for 9 because I was in batch 24. which is in 1967 I started nursing. And then I did my general with Fund 9 in Policy in general. So those were the beginning of my working hard and starting to travel, with the children and that kind of thing, going to New York and, phase out the sewing because I started to shop now.
All right. All right. So before we start getting to the comfortable life, let me ask Lennox. So, what drove you in this job to move from working on the truck? I know. You will tell our listeners and viewers. I mean, what point you got to in terms of the Nestle arrangement, but what drove you to move from where you are a packer in the yard, a man delivering on the trucks, etc., to the position of where you got to in this big international company?
I always felt that I could have done better. God had given me some talent that I needed to use. And every little opportunity that came along, just similar to my wife.
So sorry, Lennox, before you move on, if you move to your left a little bit so that we get you on the wrong side, go the other way. So that we get you right.
Oh, that's right.
And you all can shift about as each one of you speaking. So go ahead now.
Okay.
You're drifting back. Go back right. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Yes. So I was always looking for opportunities. And I remember another opportunity came by, and that to me was the turning point for me. There was no looking back, no turning back. I was at home in Pierre Lane one afternoon when I saw a car coming.
So tell our listeners and viewers, where is this Pierre Lane you're talking about?
Pierre Lane is at the corner of Prince and Piccadilly Street at the foot of Laventry Road.
Okay.
You don't get more behind the bridge than.
Okay. You're exactly behind the bridge at that point.
That's correct.
Right.
And Pierre Lane wasn't a place that people wanted to frequent, So this afternoon, I got home from work early, and I was standing up in the lane talking to somebody when I saw a car coming into the lane, a car that I was familiar with the car number. And I said, well, no, that can't be so-and-so. This is looking like Conrad Reese to me. And then Conrad Reese come out of the car. Now, this is not an area where people are just driving just so. Conrad Reese got out of the car with a smile on her face. And we had a joke that we shared between us with Peanuts in the comic strip called Ahem. That was always to grab your attention. And so Conrad said, Ahem. And I responded to him. He said, listen to me. Tomorrow morning, please go on. I want you to come to work dressed not as a loader, but you had to come to work dressed as a salesman. Say, dressed as a salesman. He said, yes. We had a little problem with one of the salesmen, and I recommended that you take over that position from tomorrow, please, God.
Okay, you're back at the side again. I don't know. Don't move the computer around. Well, you're excellent there. Just keep it there. Don't move the computer. Move it right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Move your fingers.
We should good there.
Right. Okay.
Yes. So you sent me now on a mission. I had to go and find some clothes that look kind of decent enough to be salesmanish. Excuse me. And so I went and took up the position. And well, he was always in my corner making sure that, I'm doing the best. That was the very first year, but it was too late for me to be involved in the salesman of the year. But the second year, when I got running, I was up and running. I took the salesman of the year title.
Okay, okay. Were you aware that people, and this is for both of you, were you aware that people like yourself who were born in on the wrong side of the bridge, let's put it like that, you were not supposed to succeed, that you were supposed to live in the backyards of Port of Spain forever and ever. Were you aware that that was your ambition? That should have been your ambition in life.
Well, staying behind the bridge was certainly not an ambition of mine. I thought there was so much more life to be lived, and I thought that I had been blessed with some ability that was yet to shine, and I was going to ensure that these skills that I had be exposed, and that a family was an important thing to me.
Okay.
Family was an important thing to me, and in order to get your family up and running, you had to secure a good job, so that when things are needed, you could supply them. So, and I always felt that I had the ability to do more. I always had the ability to do more, and bit by bit, that became a reality.
But there must have been people. You're living in Port of Spain, that behind the bridge. You must have been encountering people who felt that one, they had to stay where they are, and there were only a few things, a few options open to them. They become a bargain or a pimp, and that is the life that they had to live. And were you over ambitious? This little black boy from St. James, we were born with no gold spoon, as you say, a brass spoon. How you could, aspire to more than what you were born with?
Yes, it would have been seen as such by some people, but I didn't plan to let that slow me down. I felt good taking on these challenges and winning them. I remember at one point in time, some of my sales colleagues were getting a pressure with this boy from behind the bridge coming and winning salesman of the month every month. And when it moved from winning salesman of the month to winning salesman of the year, and this made people very uncomfortable. But I was prepared to take up the challenge. So much so I remember there were mornings when I walked into the office, you could feel the shushu going around. And I will boldly sing. I will start singing. Who God bless, no man shall ever curse. Shall be first.
Right. Right.
I don't think they was too happy with that either. That made them even more unhappy.
Yeah. That's boy, the young fellas of higher color than you were.
Oh, of course. Some of these guys had a university degree. Most of these guys had a little vehicle they were driving. All I had was an umbrella. But
and Lennox, you didn't feel that you had to go outside and lock somebody's neck to get what you wanted to develop your family and so on?
No.
You feel that's the only option, they had to get done.
No, not at all. Not at all. I understood prayer from early in life, and I came from praying parents and grandparents. That helped, and even though some of the guys I line with from down Nelson Street and Prince Street, we were in Richmond Street together, my goal was always one higher than that. I was always striving to be top of the pile,
And the role of Angela and the family, the children, and when they came along and so on, that was that important in terms of steering the family forward?
Angela.
Yeah. Well, both of us were pushing each other. I began to do well, and he's doing well because when he started, I always knew, that he had what it takes to do well because I was so amazed that with figures, he was really good at figures. So even when the guy came and told him about that salesmanship job. I told her, I said, well, then you have no problem. Remember, you good at figures, so, you go mash them up, I mean, I was confident because I was always amazed at how good he was at arithmetic. And after this week, I telling him, one thing I should have pushed him, because I remember I went and I did English on my own, even when I was saying to him, just this weekend, I should have done human and social biology as a subject after, and we could have done subjects, but we didn't even study that. We decided to do what we were doing and do it to the best of our ability at that point in time. Hearing about the advertisement of the NHA houses in Barataria, I remember I was trained Susu, and I took that hand of Susu to pay down $500 to book that place. We knew Ivan Williams, so luckily for us, he helped us to get this place in Barataria, and that was the start,
But Lennox, you must have grown up in the middle of fellas who became Bajan and so on, fellas who have plenty woman and so on, and those are their aspirations that young boys, young men should have aspired to. How did you escape that? I mean, them fellas with big name and so on, they have a lot of respect, People give them respect. There's Mr. So and so. Call some Bajan names who were in tongue at that point in time.
At that point in time, let me see. Down Nelson Street, you had down Nelson Street was Applejackers.
Yes.
And you had people like Bolong and Arnim and these guys. Up Nelson Street, what you had up Nelson Street, boy? Up Nelson Street had people like Lefander, Andy, Eddie. Then you went in a little higher up along the bridge now into Lawbreakers.
Right.
Where you had Whitey Kincaid and Musu. Boldface.
Yes.
Relax. And
fellas weren't easy.
No. I always remember one night coming from cinema, coming down Charlotte Street, and men coming running up Charlotte Street with something in their hand. I don't know what they have in their hand. It's cutlass something men have, And I remember the last watchman, he says, small one, take care of it, going up Prince Street there, be careful. Boy, I trembled from then till I reach home. Because them fellas they was on the go the night, blood was shedding.
But so it was a difficult environment.
Of course.
What stirred in your mind? And we knew that you got the job and you were working hard and so on, but there must have been something else apart from that would steer you into a different way.
Well, I think it was one prayer, Stoney. Papa God, get me out of this quick.
Yeah.
You
right on that. Go ahead.
And my intention was to work even harder because I wanted. I became kind of greedy for promotion because I have a family to take care of, and anything that I could do that could improve me and this family, I doing it at all costs. I've been brave enough to go into it and deal with it. I wasn't going to let nothing slow me down. So on the one hand, I had the wrong the bridge atmosphere to deal with. And on the other hand, I had these people who went to the fancy colleges who couldn't stand this little black boy. You understand? So I had it on either side. And somehow the other, I was enjoying that.
Okay.
Because I was telling myself I had to come out on top. And when I won the second salesman of the year, I tell myself, I understand the secret of this thing now. I supposed to be the king here. And went on to 2 more salesmen of the year. And then they decided, look, we think we better get this boy a little promotion, yes?
Yeah. But you said something interesting there, that you decided that you had to be the king. I mean, was that a little bit presumptuous, a little black boy from behind the bridge with nothing in particular to advance his cause, having such ambitions?
Well, I don't know, Tony. I felt, well, it could be this little angel in me pushing me, Because you're quite right. When I look around me, I see guys who, they have done very well in all the colleges, and they're really sharp on it. But I coming in now with nothing, and winning a salesman of the year from these very talented men. And then if anybody had any doubt about it, I do it a second time so they make sure that I was serious.
So you want them to know that you belong there?
Yes. I may not have the qualifications, the papers to show, or the correct color, skin color. But boy, all they really have a challenge holding me back.
So color was important in that period, in those circumstances?
Oh yes. That was always present. There was even the term half white. That was a popular term. A half white fella could always get through.
Yeah. If you're brown, stick around.
If that's it, you got it. If you're white, you're right.
If you're black, move in the back.
That's stay in the back.
All right, so we are talking with Lennox and Angela Tousaint, talking about their lives, where they grew up, where they came from. And one of the things that we've learned from them is about ambition and looking around in their own environment and making a determination so that they had to do what they had to do to improve their lives and improve their circumstances. And that improvement was not based on becoming a pimp or a bargain in the instance of Lennox to get fame and recognition. Because fame and recognition were important in those days. You get stripes if you're big and bad on the block. So, Chalo, we're going to continue in a moment, but I'm sure that you want to tell our listeners, viewers, something about the station as we move forward. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, Tony, and thank you very much for having Mr. Tousaint and Mrs. Tousaint on today.
Chalo, sorry, before you go, did you know that about Lennox?
I didn't know all of that. I really didn't know all of that, but I'm enjoying this conversation immensely.
All right. We had no sign yet of the other guest who was supposed to come.
Actually, no, and I tried contacting him and not getting him on the phone.
He seemed to have got lost somewhere. But go ahead.
Yeah, but I have a song. Let me play it for you guys, and then I'll come back and tell you, and we'll continue the conversation, right?
I am Christopher, son of Lucifer, and a real bad. I ain't joking that I ain't afraid to death. I was born in a graveyard. Let me tell you flat, tongue written up Maggie Scott, bitter man and Ozzy. The past and present badge on respect me. I beat men like Gold Teeth, Copperhead and Sims. Bring the Jack and Boise sing. Asten, Kid Cooley and Kincaid, Musso Scribo, Jack Slade, the great Fire Kong, he and all they freed me in tongue. Threaten, I don't give warning, is only action. Heavy cough for cough, I'll destroy an entire tongue to catch one man. I's a man do bluff, Ask Mickey Nose and Ziggy Lee. One time in Sipari, they see me beat the whole of Red Army. Big Sacks, Skipper Jeff and Lance, Scorpion, Cutter and Bunkans, Jobel and Samson, prison, afraid me more than the afraid prison.
Welcome to Drivetime Exchange. As rubber hits the road, hard talk meets great music. Monday to Thursday, 4 to 6 p.m. on Nett Radio, taking you above and beyond.
As we continue to take you above and beyond, of course, people, you are listening to New Era TT Radio. We say Nett Radio for short. Yeah, so get caught up in the net. And remember, you can find us. We are streaming on newerattradio.com. You can also, because of your smart devices, get us on TuneIn. So you can get us on Alexa. Of course, your Google apps. You can also check us out on our Facebook, YouTube, Instagram pages. And during the morning period, of course, we stream on M&E TV, which streams to a number of cable channels such as Flow, Digicel, Traycore, and a couple others in between there. Of course, our afternoon drive time is commanded by none other than Mr. Tony Fraser. Tony, I played that song just by listening to Mr. Tousaint just now when he started to talk about the bad Johns and stuff.
Chalo, you play a song that calls some big men there in tongue, but
people I only heard about.
Right, Lennox, those were some big bad fellas here that the man called, boy.
Oh, definitely. That they used to make mention too. You know. One of the things that I just realized I didn't tell you about, Tony, is that I had spent 10 years in City Syncopated Steel Orchestra.
Right.
3 years as the assistant secretary, and then the next 7 years as the secretary of the band.
All right.
And it was a very challenging and experience. Syncopators was a good steel band, a very good steel band as such. And that came to the 4th year when they went toe-to-toe with Pan Am North Stars.
Yeah.
In the festival. Both of them playing
Voices of Spring.
Voices of Spring, yes. You know?
And in those days, if a band could beat Pan Am North Stars, you had to come real good.
You better believe it.
Muffman and them fellas, boy.
Yes, Muffman, Tony Williams.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move to outside the physical, the ambitions that you both had to move from where you were to another place. Was there some other kind of external force that you think made a difference in your lives and contributed to the kind of success that you experienced in later life? Well, not too later life, in your 30s, 40s, that kind of period.
I remember one instant where, while going to St. Rose's Intermediate, I was in the First Communion and Confirmation class, and my mother was saying she had no money to buy the dress and prayer book and all this veil and crown and all this thing. But I didn't take her on. I decided to pray. I was telling God, I want to. And I stayed somehow or the other at age 11, believing that prayers, somehow or the other, that I will get through. I didn't know how, when, how. And the day before, the morning before, I told Miss Gillan that, my mother say I can't make it. She said, what? I told her, well, look, she said she didn't have any money to buy these things. And teachers and them, Miss Cherry, I remember carefully, and Miss Gillan and her sister Fanny and Iris decide, we will buy these things. Go and tell her, have a little white dress. And they send me home, or during school hours, send me, because I live in around the bridge, so I'll just walk around. Tell your mother, we will buy the things. And if she didn't have a dress, she can't get a dress. And I had this little dingy little white dress. And she decided, well, we had this bleach, remember the bleach with the little wire holes. She said, well, all right, I'm going to wash it and I'm going to put it on the bleach. Send me by my godfather, ask him to buy a pair of shoe. He lived at Picton. He was my uncle, her brother, was also my godfather. And he said, okay, carry me and buy a shoe. So I come down the road, hopping down, man, and went back to school and say, okay. And I was reading the pack when I tell you, that started my prayer and my faith in God. I remember it was no turning back. I had, from that day, I had faith as a grain, even though 11 years old, as a grain of mustard seed that prayers, anything you pray for, that God could answer. All things are possible. And I remember I was leading the pack like an angel. I felt so spiritual and so good, like I was in heaven. And that I think also helped in the rest of my life moving forward. That faith in God and that prayer, that was the one little thing, dear. And I had it was an evening after prayer meeting. We used to have this prayer meeting, and I found a watch, and I took it home. And the mother, I remember, wrapped it up in a piece of toilet paper. And no, probably it wasn't toilet paper because I don't remember we having toilet paper in them days. No, it was gazette. But she wrapped it in a piece of paper and I took it back the morning and oh my God, that was a big thing. Had me on stage talking about honesty and was Miss Cherry's watch. And I think that helped my situation in the school from then on.
Yeah. Lennox, inspiration from outside of yourself?
What would I see as inspiration? Along the way, I met people who I admired and aspired to live a quality life like them. My deceased mother's brother, Uncle Boy was, he didn't have no fancy car or nothing like that, but he was always present to assist, and somehow or the other he assisted in an alarming way. Whether it was to make a carnival costume for me to play in Starlift or any other thing to support, he was present. And he happened to be one of the key people in my life, you know. And along the way, I saw people who I admired, and they had a kind of quiet success, and quiet success is the one I liked. So I kind of followed along their path, you know, not too much of foo-foo, but ensuring that at the end of the day there was success.
Okay. And spirituality now, was that important in your development and advance forward?
Yes, it was. And when I look back at my life, when I look back at my life, I smile because I realized that was a cornerstone, a pillar in my life without I realizing it that early. For instance, I had a real good time in Carnival, you know, but I also had a very good time in the retreat when the retreat came along. When Ash Wednesday reached and it's time for retreat, I was most present there. And recently I was looking back at my life and I said, God have an interesting way in which he does things. When I was living with my grandmother on Dundonald Street, I went to Sacred Heart Church. That's where I did First Communion and Confirmation. Then we moved and we went to St. James. And I was going to St. Mary's Church until we moved to behind the bridge. When we moved behind the bridge, it was cathedral. I think I gave you the joke about how serious my mother was about church.
Yeah.
We coming home 4:00 in the morning from party and looking to hit the sack. And she saying, who on the bed could go and bathe, who on the brush the teeth, brush the teeth. We're going to church in the next 10 to 15 minutes. So as tired as it was, and as sleepy as it was to the cathedral we went. And that followed every Sunday morning. We had to go to church at cathedral. And as I went through life, I kept that close to me. And for instance, I couldn't wait for the carnival, the retreats after carnival. I was always present at those retreats. You know, I remember working at Nestle in Valsin and hustling up to Tanapuna to catch the retreat in time to catch the retreat. And I suspect maybe that is where Father Stout may have seen me and decided, no, it was later down. Father Stout would have seen me at St. Anne's.
No, no.
Where?
Yeah, when I was going a few Sundays and going in the morning, going in the evening. This friend introduced me to Father Stout. I think he had just come from Cathedral. He was young.
So somebody's hand is right across the camera.
Lennox hand behind.
Right.
Behind. Yes, this friend told me about this priest, the voice, he could sing so much, and she invited me to Napuna. And I found myself going in the morning and a few evenings, I want to go back. I mean, real good food. And I'm telling Lennox, and he want to know. I said, well, you have to come and experience it. So a few Sundays I went morning, I going back in the evening. He used to take off the lights. And this Sunday evening, Lennox went and he took off the light, boy, those days. And I think that was the turning point in our life as family. We all used to go, and at that point, we were away some point in time, and he asked the girls had gone without us, where your parents? I want to see them when they come back. And I think he asked us to serve the blood, start serving the blood in church and so on. Then when he moved from Tanapuna to St. Anne's, we followed him. And then he approached Lennox to do the lay minister's course. And Lennox will tell you the rest. The rest is history, but this started because I would say too here that there was a point in my life where I was really searching. I went to Pentecostal. I used to go Woodbrook. I used to go Cura Pentecostal. A friend even invited me to some other church, and I was there. I started to go. I remember accepting the Lord in Emmanuel's in Woodbrook. And then you wanted more, just wanted more, until I met Father Stout in Tunapuna. That started to change not only with me, but with the entire family. Yeah.
Right, so Lennox, spirituality became important, an important factor in your moving forward.
Definitely. I couldn't wait for Carnival to be over. Whilst I enjoyed Carnival immensely, I couldn't wait for Carnival to be over for the retreats to start, because I don't know what it was, but the retreats had something on me. I would travel and go up to Tanapuna in the night to take in the retreat, and it really was something that interested me, and it drew me closer to the church. But there was one that I really going to hear Father Stout on a Sunday. I couldn't go into church after church started because I found people who were a little bit indifferent. They used to skin up the face and thing, like when they had to move their foot for them to pass, why you couldn't come early, that kind of behavior. So if we reached the church late, Angie would go inside, I would stand by the door. And there was this evening that when Father Stout took off the lights and he asked that we hold each other's hand and sing. And we went through this song, and there's something interesting about it. And then the song came to an end, and he put back on the lights. And when I look at the fellow whose hand I was holding on the left side of me, it was a vagrant. But there was something about this vagrant, there was an aura, and he looked at me, he smiled and he shook his head, and I shook my head, and I said, wow, that must be my blessing for the week. Yeah, because it is something I would get, as Andy said, like it's food I used to get for the week. I had to get that Sunday evening food to go to work for the week. Okay. That's where I got my energy from. Right.
Okay. So, But then there was another side of you that I came to understand. So the spirituality, your attention to the church, to your Lord, and following in that path, your job going well, you advancing, and all of that. And then Lennox Tousaint is the manager of a Calypso tent, the stage manager of a Calypso tent. I mean, that's a crazy kind of thing, you know, Lennox.
Yes, yes. And I will admit, there's a level of craziness in me when it comes to these things. You know, because people, I want to tell you this one before I forget. I had some musician friends here from Barbados. They had come for the carnival. And they came to Spectacular, and after enjoying the show immensely, they say, we had to go down Shagarama to hear Marshall.
Mhm.
Now, they take care of me when I in Barbados. I had to return the favor when they're here. So we went down to Shagaramas, and it was getting close to 1 o'clock. And we heard that Marshall will come on at 2. Fella said, all right, they ain't going nowhere. We here to enjoy. And then just before 2 we hear you'll be on at 3. You understand? Now the tiredness is starting to come down on me. And I have church in the morning. I mean, I have church a few hours from now. Hey. Then they say, definitely, he coming on at 4 o'clock. I said, nah, that ain't gonna cut it for me now. So I called my colleague who owned the place and I tell him, I say, listen, I have these friends here from Barbados. I wanted to ensure that they get back to the hotel in Woodbrook safely because I have to leave now. I must leave now. He said, all right, don't worry that. I could take care of them for you. Tony, my eyelids start come down and make coming up to that time we were in Mount Lambert.
Mount Hope.
Mount Hope. And I made it to Mount Hope. I had a nice warm shower, a cup of coffee, and I was back at St. Anne's for Mass the Sunday morning.
Mhm.
Yeah. I didn't joke with that because I tell people
They found out.
when it comes to carnival, if you want the carnival to be nice and clean, you have to pray to the Almighty God.
Yeah.
It don't have-
You were able to twin those two lives together.
What is that?
Spiritual life and the prayer life.
So and the prayers. Yeah. He didn't make the
I had always seen Calypso as a gift from the Almighty.
Yeah.
Didn't give nobody else in the world that gift.
Yeah.
Give it to Trinbagonians.
Yeah.
So I always had the greatest respect for Calypso for that particular art form.
But here is Lennox Tousaint, close in the church, and so on. And you in this hidden business, going in Calypso tent night after. You're not just going. You're the manager of the stage. You're dealing with some men who ain't know nothing about prayer and thing. I hear you did some innovation inside of there also. And the Calypso tent as manager.
I'm going to bring an extension.
Yep. Well,
Battery and low, let me get an extension. You talk by the time.
One of the things I had always seen in growing up, I didn't see that at first because at first I saw Calypso like everybody else saw it. But then as I went along and I listened to the work and I looked at the fellas and I realized that Calypso is a gift from the Almighty. You understand? And Calypso doesn't come just like that. When you listen to some of the work that some of the artists put on, you realize that the Frank Sinatra or the Bing Crosby or the Engelbert Humperdinck, half of them don't have that quality of work. And you know that didn't just come like that. That had to come from the Almighty.
So you were twinning the two things, the spirituality and the cultural aspect of your life.
Yes, definitely. Because I believe that inside of that Calypso there is something great. And the varying messages that come. Mm-hmm. You have the bacchanal songs, yes, that you could shift aside. But then you have some great work, great work that you shake your head and know that could only come from God.
Yeah. So how did you live with the Calypsonians? And Lennox Tousaint was the stage manager of the Spectacular Forum. I'm sure that people remember that Upper Henry Street. When the tent opened, it was a different kind of tent from the long time, the traditional Calypso tent. So Lennox Tousaint, following closely the church, and then the other revelation in your life will come when you move further from just being a good layman in the church to doing something else. A priest didn't tell you, boy, Lennox, you're living in sin and you're trying to mix the two things together?
No, I tell you again, it was Father Godfrey Stout.
So you're doing something with the computer. I'm only seeing your chest now. You have to stabilize it.
I'm trying to get this phone plugged in because I see it's saying low battery.
That's not bring in an extension. Let me see.
Yeah.
So you have to get the power cord to fix it up.
Yep.
All right. So we better, Chalu, let's take a break so that they can plug in the computer. It's going to go off in a moment, and we come back to the discussion.
You could change.
I am Christopher, son of Lucifer, and a real bad. I ain't joking that. I ain't afraid to death. I was born in a graveyard. Let me tell you flat. Tongue written up, Maggie Scott, bitter man and Ozzy. The past and present badge don't respect me. I beat men like Gold Teeth, Copperhead and Sims. Pringy, Jack and Boise sing. Asten, Kid Cooley and Kincaid. Musso Scribo, Jack Slade. The great Fire Kong, he and all the freed me in town.
Join me, Brother David Muhammad, every Tuesday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. here on New Era TT Radio, Net Radio, Powerful Radio. Join me to hear knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Tuesdays, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. here on New Era TT Radio, Net Radio.
This summer, give your child skills of a lifetime with several boot camp. Children between the ages of 5 to 17, come enjoy Children Iron Chef Competition. Your child will learn to prepare healthy breakfast, lunch, dinner, CPR, first aid, and conflict management. With field trip, your child will be given free apron and certification upon completion. Call 492-7397 or 336-4935. Institute of Health and Fitness Company Limited, located at number 79 St. Vincent Street, Tunapuna.
S&H Rumbox, 137 Western Main Road, St. James, for all your retail and wholesale needs for alcohol and non-alcoholic beverages. Call us at 686-0599 or visit us at 137 Western Main Road, St. James. S&H Rumbox, drinking out of the box.
Advertise with us on New Era TT Radio, the fastest growing streaming platform for talk in Trinidad and Tobago. Audio and video ads welcome. Elevate your brand with us. Connect with us at newerattradio@yahoo.com or call us at 299-5156. Now what are you waiting for?
Bring back the old time days. bring back them old time ways. I know everything must change, but I still love the old time days. Used to be everyone could afford to live right, just to feel nice, didn't need no paradise. Now open your eyes, look around, smoke in the city, and what was pretty, crying out for sympathy. So bring back the old time days, bring back them old time ways. I know everything was changed, but I still love the old time days.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Drive Time Exchange here on New Era TT Radio with Tony Fraser and, of course, Mr. and Mrs. Tousaint, as we're bringing back some old time days here. Tony, it's back to you.
Okay, Chalo, I think our guests are back in condition, plugged in, and power is running. Yes, all looks well from here. Okay, so Lennox, I want to get in quickly another aspect of your life, which again may seem to have been contradictory, but I know it contributed significantly to your own development and also the development of Trinidad and Tobago, as big as it was, the man involved in a Carnival Juve band. Tell our listeners or viewers about that, another element of the life, 1970. Go ahead.
1970. Difficult. My brother passed away last week, and we were running back some of these things, or running back most of them, because he was the fireman. He was the man with the boxer matches in those days. 1970, for us in Pine Toppers, was born out of the parties. The type of parties we gave was different to ordinary party. You know, it always had some form of learning in it. And from there, the band started to emerge. And the band turned out to be something much bigger than we really had in mind. We were interested in American politics at the time and what was happening with America and the Black Power and all of that. And so we decided to go for this Juve band. We composed 2 songs for the band. One I distinctly remember, man, is torture in the country, people hungry, going crazy, every day, every night. That ain't right, that ain't right. It is a fact. And we in a trap. The government know that. Unity is the only guide, time to get up and take a side. Man, the writing is on the wall. United we stand, divided we fall. That was one of the songs that we composed for that 1970 band. 1970 was a big challenge for us because not even the police officers who were trying to snuff out the whole situation understood clearly what we were trying to achieve. They didn't understand the importance of getting Black people a fair break. That's all it was about, getting a break for Black people, because we felt that Black people then was not getting a fair break. Particularly in the banks and things when we go, we used to see, these people not being as affected. So we went the distance with it. It turned out to be much bigger than we thought in size. And we saw some people in the band Juve morning who we didn't expect to see. Union leaders, a number of the top union leaders.
What was the name of the band?
Africa Before, After, Now.
Mm-hmm. So it was a display, if you like, of Black power emerging from a sense of consciousness.
Yes, it was. We had drummers, and we really shook up for us playing that Juve morning. So much so that at 1 o'clock in the day, a large percentage of the people who was in the band gathered and said they want to go back out again. I told my brother, I said, why too tired for that? He said, well, they ain't going. They sit down out there waiting on me. We eventually mustered up the courage and the energy, and we were back on the road Monday evening again. People singing and chanting, say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. And really giving off, because I think they understood what we were going at. We were not about black violence as people try to propagate. All we were saying is that there are people in the society who are not being given an equal opportunity. And I always remember my brother and I had an argument when he was painting this banner that says Africans and Indians unite now. And at his funeral last week in his passing, that came back to me. The endless effort that he put into getting that banner finished in time for Couva, the March to Couva. If there's one thing about that Black Power movement that I remember is he painted that banner.
Okay, so he was the man who did that very important and big banner, Africans and Indians Unite.
Yep, he was the man.
I have a picture of it somewhere around here that I could dig up, but at another time. So there again, Lennox, to say you were, well, let's go one thing at a time. That Juve band preceded the marching in Port of Spain, yes?
Yes, it did.
You all involved?
Yes, it did.
Would you like to hear what in the before, after, and now? Before was in the African type garments, which became popular in decades later on. Examining now, like what those people on Emancipation did is we all the pretty African outfits in that section. In the after section, the masqueraders portrayed caricatures of the captured African slaves by the European traders. And there was drumming and scenes of the horrific acts committed against blacks through the Middle Passage. Right? And Africans in the holdings of the slave vessels. And in the now, it depicted a portrayal centered around the white beast with blood dripping from its hands and mouth. Yeah, I love this big thing with like a white
money in one hand.
In between all of the now masqueraders held huge posters of the revolutionary figures of the black consciousness like Malcolm X, Angela Davis, Eldridge Cleave, and Stokely Carmichael and Kwame Ture and others. Right? In that section, all the militant trade unionists and things, they played in that section. National Joint Action Committee, Dave Darbro, Geddes Granger, Clive Eunice, Lasana Kwesi, all of those. Yes, and they played with Pine Toppers in that section.
Right. So the Pine Toppers, which brought out this band, was, if you like, a forerunner to when the marches and so on broke out on the streets and came to a culmination point on the 21st of April. So between February and April, there was the band on the street signifying Black Power change had to come. Remember, Calypsonian Duke was what, 68, 69? Black is beautiful.
I'm not thinking that, this band would have, brought along all this, that would have stimulated, all this
consciousness.
Consciousness, yes.
Did that surprise you all, Lennox, that, you do your Juve morning thing and all of this thing flowed from it? Did that surprise you all?
Yes, it did. And what was even more surprising was some of the people who we saw getting involved in it. As the band went down Frederick Street, we saw some people looking, reading, and then 10, 15 meters down the road in the band. So I brave enough to identify with it, and we said that this is an amazing thing. People quietly sitting back and looking and listening, Right. My brother has gone to his grave.
Lennox Tousaint, who became a reverend, and that's another story that you have to tell before you move on. All of these seeming contradictions in your life. you in the church, you in holy business and so on, and then you're in this Black Power thing and talking. And I remember, which I'm sure that you are fully aware of, the Archbishop being asked to show yourself, come out and join the march to Caroni. And I don't know, but I presume the elders in the church didn't want that. The elders of a certain class and color didn't want to identify with this thing. All of these contradictions, how do you explain them, Lennox Tousaint?
I explain them by the guidance of the Almighty God. The Holy Spirit points me in directions, and I follow the directions. And so far, so good. I thank God. For instance, I was at church one evening when Father Stout called out to me. And this was really one of the furthest things from my mind. And he told me, Lennox, I want to see you after church, yeah? Well, you know Father Stout's voice. So it had to be something wrong I did or said at this point in time. But we'll find out in a little while.
Too much calypso at spectacular.
And he wasn't want to be too much in carnival.
You're quite right. You're quite right. That's one of the early thoughts that fly through my head, you know. Because, people always saw calypso as a kind of devil thing, a kind of, but spectacular was a cut above the rest, thank God. So after church, I waited to hear what he had in mind. And he explained to me that Bishop Gilbert had indicated that the time has come for us to have deacons here in Trinidad. And he would like the church to send representatives who they think are fit and able to take up that position. He said, so I'm recommending you. My response is, me? He says, yes, I'm recommending you to be part of that team. And I say, okay, if you say so, it's so.
No, you say you want to talk to your wife, you talk to your family.
Yes. I said, let me talk to my family and get back to you. Because I was a little confused how you arrive at this. And my company, my family put a big stamp on it. Go right ahead.
After praying.
So I went back to Father Stout and told him, listen, we have given this some deep thought and some deep prayer. And the answer is yes. To date, I have no regrets. I hold the same position as I held.
So what did you become after that program? Tell our listeners, viewers, Zad.
A deacon.
In the Archdiocese.
A deacon in the Archdiocese of Port of Spain. And
what did that imply? What did it require of you?
It required of me some making time to do some studies and attend some classes every weekend at Mount St. Benedict and at Tanapuna.
After.
You
can baptize.
And now it also gave me the authority to marry people like you when you decide to get married again. Baptize your children, assist the priest at mass,
communion service.
Conduct communion services.
So this little black boy from behind the bridge, his schooling stopped early. He riding on truck like Shadow on Friday afternoon. He must have a little patch in the pants also. He become a deacon. I mean, how did that happen?
The work of the Almighty. God has always been in my life. I say that without fear of contradiction. God has always been in my life, and when I sit back and look at it, I shake my head and say, thank you, Lord. For instance, that party that I told you that I took the Bajans to down Shagaramas.
Yeah.
I alone driving back up the road at 3:30 in the morning. Tiredness. I have drunken people coming at me in the opposite direction. Who behind want to go faster. And I made that through up to Mount Lambert where we were living at Mount Hope, where we were living at the point in time. And I thank God for that because That is weeks of tiredness, you know, and I was able to make it by myself. Up the road, take a shower, had a cup of coffee, and get to St. Anne's Church before my start.
Yeah. Another challenge came in your life. You became a friend of a fellow called Dr. Hollis Liverpool. He talked us.
Yes.
And he had some thoughts about what you did at Spectacular and that you should do some academic work on the basis of that. Tell our listeners about that.
Yes, Dr. Hollis Liverpool, who I have a great deal of respect for, very talented young man. You know, he indicated to me that he think I should take part in the Master of the Arts Calypso group at University of Trinidad and Tobago. Now, I listened to him. It sounded interesting, but I retained that there was still only 7 days in a week. You know, so to get this up and running and make a success of it, I'm not going into it if I'm not going to be a success.
Right.
You know, but then again, where the time coming from to put all of this together. But with the good support of my wife and family and encouragement from Dr. Liverpool, I was able to
help from above.
Well, the master again. Again, the master was very present there to trot me along, you know.
So this is a man who didn't go to secondary school and didn't have a first degree. Suddenly, he's been asked to do a Master's of the Arts at university at a postgraduate level, what is called tertiary level education. How did you feel about that? Was that a challenge that you felt you could take on?
Yes, it was, because I was doing this partly for me, but mainly for other young people. I wanted young people to know that they could put the effort into things and get it done. You know, it will take a little extra, but you will get it done. You know,
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and at every turn in my life, I continue to thank God, because it wasn't easy. You know, for Spectacular to be the most successful tent during the time that it was on was not an easy task. It was not an easy task to do a serious, hard day's work, get home, shower, have a strong cup of coffee, and go down to the forum and put together a show till midnight.
And dealing with Calypsonians who are not easy for us.
Oh, that's another story all by itself. Yes, that was a big challenge.
Yeah, and somebody told me that this man, I think it's Chogras himself, this man who we don't know have any big academic background, who we know too much about Calypso, he come in the tent and he want to pray for us before we go on stage.
Yes, that was that started off a little tough, but I was not going to start a show unless we had given thanks to the Almighty and sought the Almighty's guidance throughout the show. I wasn't going to do no show. I remember one night I was late because I had a meeting in Port of Spain, and we had a show in San Fernando. And by the time I got down to San Fernando, 3-4 artists had gone on the stage. The fourth artist was on the stage, and I was asking the assistant stage manager, may his soul rest in peace, how we reach for already? He said, well, nobody can no encore, you know. I said, well, let's say any prayers before they start? He said, no. So, God, look, pull the fellas together quick, pull them together now. That's it. Oh, they can't start without a word of prayer. And we did it, and the show settled down nicely and turned out to be a great show. Well, I know he was watching my dad will be a man, you
know. Sir Charles, I am sure that you experienced that. That Lennox Tousaint is another part of his life that we don't have time to talk about all of it. The man ended up at Power 102 as the manager And Charlo, I sure you remember the man starting to pray before, rebel men like, what's his name, Gladiator and fellas like that. That's not an easy thing, right, Charlo?
No, it has not. It wasn't an easy thing, but it was a necessary thing, and it worked well. And what he started within the Calypso tent, then because even in my little foray into the Calypso tent last year and this year, that is a part of the thing now. Everybody's praying before we go on stage, So what he started there with Spectacular has probably spread to a lot of other areas. And working with Mr. Tousaint was a real pleasure. To Power 2. We came in at a time when we were going through some real difficult challenges and stuff. And but was always very calm. The same way he's speaking right now. I don't think I've ever heard Mr. Tousaint spoke anywhere out of that same tone and respect for people. And working under him, I learned so much, and I'm very thankful for that, in all aspects. Mr. Tousaint, thank you very much.
And Charlo, I remember I wasn't an employee of the station, but I came and did some freelance work and so on. And I remember getting caught up one morning. I stayed there too long. I would stay till 8 o'clock and then leave. And I got caught up there. And this man coming to pray, sinners like myself and Gladiator and all these kind of characters. I said, what is wrong with this man? What he trying?
Yes.
I remember too, what's his name? He had a Rasta and
Shabazz. Yes.
Shabazz. Lennox trying to pray for these fellas. I said, but is this man crazy? But anyhow, gentleman and lady, you can't believe it yet, but our 2 hours have all but transpired, and we have to get out of here before too long. So we want to thank you very much, both Angela and Lennox, for coming. And I want to give you a 20-second last statement, starting with Angela. What do you want to culminate all of this with, your lives today?
What I would say is that young people out there, and even they're not so young, could still learn a few things that have God in all that you do. Trust Him. Trust God, because prayers work. Yeah. Prayers work. And prayers had been a guiding part of our lives. Yeah. I don't think we could have made it without having God in the center of our lives.
Lennox.
Well, Angela took what I was going to say, and I said I suppose it's because it happened between both of us without the presence of Almighty God in anything. And I said that
everything.
Capital letters in anything.
And everything.
Present Almighty God. Nothing good is going to happen.
Lesson for all of these young people today who feel that because of their difficult start, they have to end in a difficult way. We want to thank you very much for coming to talk to us. And Charlo, over to you. Incidentally, we're going to talk about reefs, coral reefs in the country, both in Trinidad and Tobago. Tomorrow we have some marine scientists coming to talk to us about that. So thanks to the Tousaints for coming this afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. and Mrs. Tousaint. Thank you very much, Tony, for another interesting program. And people, you can also pick up this program. We have our rerun tomorrow morning at around 8:20 a.m. on New Era, ttradio.com. All right, stay with us. More is ahead.
I know everything must change, but I still love the old time days. Used to be everywhere. to feel nice, didn't need no paradise. Now open your eyes, look around, smoke in the city, and what was pretty, crying out for sympathy. So bring back the old time days, bring back them old time ways.
Yes, dear.
I know everything's changed, but I still love the old time days. Used to be everyone cared for each other, lived like brothers,